The views and opinions expressed on this program are not those of Norfolk State University or WNSB-FM. Thank you for listening. The immigration debate. How are brown and black people feeling about this? Can we see our own history, our own stories in this immigration debate? Coming up next on Hampton Roads Voices, whose country is it anyway? Hi, everybody. I'm Benita Adams, and welcome to Hampton Roads Voices, where people speak life into their communities. Today, we're going to talk about whose country is it anyway, the immigration debate, the zero tolerance policy. Our in-studio guests today are Dr. Soji Okumalafa, and he is the chair of the NSU Political Science Department. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Benita. Akumalafe.
Akumalafe.
I know you got it.
Okay, all right.
I know you got it.
Okay. I might just call you Dr. O in a minute, okay?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm a big fan.
Thank you for being here. And we also have Dr. Carol Pretlow. She is a professor in also the Political Science Department right here at Norfolk State University. Welcome, Dr. Pretlow.
Well, thank you. Delighted to be back here.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk about something that's emotional. We have been hearing about the zero tolerance policy. We've been talking about the immigration. We've been hearing about the immigration policy. We've heard about the children being separated from their parents, and it's emotional. And so we're going to have that conversation today. And we absolutely want you to join us in this conversation, our listeners. Our number is 757-823-9110. 757-823-9110. And I want you to call in and talk about this issue, the migration separation issue, children being separated from their parents, being detained illegally here in the U.S., any connection that you have with that. What about the black experience here in America and even the historical aspect, which we're going to talk about? Or for you, does it have the living while black have a connection with this separation issue? Call in. We definitely want to hear from you. Again, the number is 757-823-9110. So let's go ahead and get started. And I want to start, and I'll start with you, Dr. Pretlow, and ask you, do you see some of our own history or our own stories in this overall immigration debate?
Naturally, I certainly do. And I think one of the direct connections is with slavery. And when we look at and hear the stories of generations, even though it's generations and generations past, we still hear what it was like to be separated from our parents and our loved ones. And even when you look at the whole adoption process and kids being adopted, now it's wonderful that people take kids in, but when you see the pain of children who are living in a situation that they're not familiar with, the people they're not familiar with. And so there are many connections here.
What do you see, Dr. Soji?
I have a slightly different take on that. Mm-hmm. I see this issue. Let me say this for the benefit of your listeners first, that this issue is not an issue of right or left. It is an issue of right and wrong. And the immigration debate is not supposed, should not even be a debate about blacks, because immigration is an American experience. Everybody, every race that is here came here because it was weary and tired of something. They were leaving something to come to this place for a better life, whether you're black, whether you're white, or whether you're brown. Now, and I hope that we're going to come, to the point that where some people are being made scapegoats. We will talk about that later. But I just want everybody to conceive this as an American problem, no matter what the race.
Well, of course, and when I mentioned the black connection, I wasn't limiting it to that, but I was talking about my personal feeling. Now, obviously, when we think about the Statue of Liberty and the whole idea of the founding of this country, it was the idea that here we're bringing a multiplicity of cultures in, and we're coming together to form this union. And, yeah, I agree with you. It does go beyond race.
Dr. Soji, when you say scapegoat, explain that just a little bit for us. What do you mean when you say scapegoating?
You know, Benita, today it might be the brown people.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday it was the Irish, right, Carol?
Yeah. Well,
And we all remember that history, okay? And that's what I mean when I say it's an American thing. Not that I disagree with what you have said, but there has to be a point in time. It is then that we have to begin to learn from history. That we have to say, hey, do we want to learn from mistakes that we made in the past? Because what we're saying right now, what is happening right now, does not show that we have learned from the mistakes of the past. And that's precisely what I was talking about.
And our callers, what do you think in terms of learning from our history? Do you think, especially with this issue going on, that we have learned, or maybe you think we haven't learned from our history? The number to call in is 757-823-9110. That's 823, area code 757-823-9110. We're talking about separation, the immigration debate, zero tolerance, and learning from our community. Keep it locked here, Hot 91. Welcome back to Hampton Roads Voices. I'm Benita Adams, your host, and today we're talking about whose country is it anyway, the zero tolerance policy. Our in-studio guests are Dr. Soji Akumalafa, and he is the chair of NSU Political Science Department. Welcome, sir, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Benita.
And then we have Dr. Carol Pretlow, NSU Political Science Department as well. Welcome, Carol.
thank you. Glad to be here.
So we want to get you into the conversation. Don't forget, you can call in with your questions or your comments and really your experiences. How do you feel about the migration separation issue? Do you see it as connected to the Living Wild Black issue? Do you see it connected to our history in slavery or even adoption, as Dr. Pretlow had mentioned? Call in 757-823-9110, 757-823-9110. What are your thoughts? What are your experiences? Whose country is it anyway? Carol, when we left right before the break, you were talking about adoption, and I had asked you in terms of how do you see this entire immigration conversation as a part of the Black experience, and you mentioned slavery and that sense of separation, and then you mentioned adoption. Elaborate on that just a little bit and show us that connection again that you were making.
Well, I made that connection because of a personal experience. I had a very good friend who was adopted by her aunt when she was about 5. Now, her mother passed and her dad was out of the country. Even though she knew her aunt loved her, there was this feeling, and you could see it in her interactions, and I was about 6, and I could tell. She wanted it. Mom, me. It was like getting used to a whole new, it's not that she didn't accept her aunt, but it was like, I want my mom. And when I saw the faces of those kids, those children on TV, my heart broke because they don't know about policy and politics and who's right and who's wrong. They are who they love, who they're familiar with. And I think really, I know policy and politics and law is all important, but we have to get so that we identify with people's feelings.
Right. And I know what you're talking about, when I saw those pictures of those little children, especially the little girl in the red sweater that she had on, it was so emotional. And then hearing the tape of children crying and screaming. And again, you're right. They don't know anything about policy. So when we see, kids are being held in cages at border facilities and all of those children, I see exactly what you're saying. And our listeners, what did you think when you saw those pictures? I know you've seen those images and you think about children being without their moms or their dads or their aunts or grandmothers or what have you. What did you feel when you saw those pictures? 757-823-9110. We're talking about immigration. We're talking about how it affects you personally in terms of how you're thinking about it differently. So what are, Dr. Soji, what have you heard in terms of African Americans? What are they thinking about this issue? Is it, well, that has nothing to do with me, or what are they thinking?
They're thinking of it mostly in terms of right and wrong. But then, after having said that, there's a big elephant in the room that we're still not talking about.
Okay.
And that is what this says, not just about the president and his policy, but also what this says about the party that he represents. We all know this is wrong. There's no doubt about it. You saw it, Benita. You look at those pictures on TV. We're talking about 3-year-old, 5-year-old children. It breaks your heart.
It does.
Okay? So why in the name of goodness should we actually even construe this issue as an issue of right or left? To me, it really should not matter whether you're Republican or Democrat or Independent. No matter what party you belong to, right is right and then wrong is wrong, period. So this is why I say, and this is not for me necessarily an indictment of, the party of the president, but I'm thinking that if you guys are not saying anything, and not just peripherally, if you're not saying it forcefully, then it is okay for us to assume that you're okay with our policy. And that's the way I see it. And most people that I have talked to in the black community, they feel the same way.
Now, Michelle Alexander, she is an author. She's an author of the book, The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Color Blindness. And a part of this, I see it as when we think about incarceration rates for black women, especially black men. How is that, Dr. Carroll, how is that reflected, you think, in this issue, the mass incarceration rate in the African-American community?
Well, and I'm not a sociologist or a psychologist, but people react with rage. I guess I have been fortunate because I spent 2 years teaching in a prison. And when I got to know and understand some of the problems of the men who were in that prison, I saw, okay, some of them had experience with joblessness. Some had experience with, of course, deprivation, and the whole idea of inferior schooling, because it was back not shortly after desegregation. But you're seeing people who have had different experiences, and those experiences come with them into the closed environment. And I don't think they're going to always reason that I have a psychological problem or an emotional problem, but it's going to come out. You think just most of us every day, something happens to us and we're angry and we respond out of anger. And then later we say, oh my God, maybe I shouldn't have said that, or maybe I shouldn't have done that. And I think you see it at a mass level here. And what makes me afraid is that these people that are in these so-called cages, and I don't want to go on about, but if they are ever released or when they come back into society, they're not going to be saying, oh, well, thank you so much for letting me back in. They're going to be mad. And that's going to have an effect.
I truly believe that because, again, how can you put someone in a cage or incarcerate them and their thinking not be different?
Yeah.
And so
I was just going to chime in. If I may piggyback on what Carol just said. Let's put it this way. If you don't have a problem with putting a drug first offender in jail and throwing the key away, if you don't have a problem with incarcerating somebody who, smokes marijuana, and then you take, on the other hand, somebody who does cocaine, and you have such a disparity like we used to have, you're not going to have a problem with taking a kid away from his parents. I make that connection to say this. It is the thinking that belies this thing. You see, most often we talk about race when we should be talking about racism, because I make a difference between race and racism.
Oh, sure.
I speak with an African accent. If you have a European who comes from Russia or Eastern Europe, I'm telling you, some people will understand the accent more than mine just because of the color of the skin. That's not race. That's racism. Okay? And I'm going to finish by saying this. Really, people who do not have problem, when you take a child, a 5-year-old child from his parents, that is a fundamental problem with that. And I don't know what else we can say.
I'm asking our callers, what has been your experience with this? As you heard Dr. Soji mention, a difference between race and racism, accents, all kinds of things that will cause people to look at you differently. We want to hear from you. It's 757-823-9110. That's 823-9110. We want to hear from you. We're talking about race in America, and we want to know whose country is it anyway. If you're just joining us, welcome back. This is Hampton Roads Voices. I'm your host, Benita Adams, and we're talking about the issue of immigration. I know you've seen those pictures of the little children and how they look after having been taken away from their parents. We're talking about that as it relates to the Black experience. We're talking about race and racism. Our in-studio guests today are Dr. Soji Akuma-Lafe. Welcome, sir. He's the chair of the NSU Political Science Department. We're glad that you're here.
Thank you.
And Dr. Carol Pretlow, also from the NSU Political Science Department as well. Welcome, Carol.
Thank you.
All right, so we've been talking about how does this relate to us? Is it just an issue in some border, some far, far away place, or does it have some ramifications? Does it affect us? We talked about the separation in terms of our own communities. I don't know if you two saw that picture online, that mother, it was a slave mother, and her baby was being taken away. Did you see that picture online? Oh my goodness! I tell you, I almost started crying when I saw that picture. It was the slave owner, and there was a mother, and the baby was a very, very small, a couple of months old, and the baby was being taken away, and one of the overseers was holding back the mom, and she was reaching out her hand toward her baby, and a scream of sorts. Dr. Soji, did you see that picture?
No, I did not. But you're describing it so graphically, it's like I'm seeing it right now.
It was amazing. I'm telling you. It was absolutely amazing, and it just made my heart sink when I saw that.
Gosh.
And this is the thing that we're talking about in terms of children being taken from parents, and just the entire, as I asked the listeners, asked them to call in 757-823-9110. What has been your experience? Do you see a connection here? And Carol, you talked about adoption and just overall how that affects us. And when we look at our history, we can see that this issue has not just been for the people that's affecting now, but it has affected many groups of people, especially brown and black people. And so that's the important part. So we want to hear from you. How do you see this connection? 757-823-9110. We want to know whose country is it anyway? So we want to look at, I asked you about in terms of how black people are feeling it. Now, we know just the other day that President Bush reversed his policy because of a lot of pressure and backlash that he was getting in terms of children not being able to be with their parents, even if it is in detention. Carol, what do you think about that reversal of that policy?
Well, you know, it's not, for me, as I looked at it, wasn't just that policy, but to me, a real leader is a person who is not afraid to say, you know what, I was wrong. I did what I thought was best at the time, but in retrospect, I think that this was wrong because of this, I am changing and I'm going. It's not a political thing. It's not, oh yeah, my electorate is. It's, I feel that I made a mistake. And to me, that's the mark of a real leader, a person who can say, you know, it's not a Republican, Democratic, as Dr. Kamalafi said, it's what's right. And I made a mistake, and I'm rectifying.
Okay. All right. What do you think, Doctor?
Let us clear something out, because when people hear zero policy, the first thing that comes to their mind, people who are crossing illegally. You know, they think of those. You see those pictures that we see on TV. Sometimes people running on, on their feet like they want to cross, but that's not it. No, Benita, that's not it. Because many of these people, hundreds, if not thousands of them, they're actually asylum seekers. This is something that's entrenched not just in our laws, but also isn't you an international policy person? It's international law. Okay? So these are people who come to the United States. They come through the borders, and the first thing they do is hand themselves over to the authorities.
But and you hit on something, because this morning as I was going over things, I was like, wait a minute, it's time for the UN to kick in here. And I know
the United States has just disengaged from the Human Rights Commission. So, hey,
that's exactly.
That bird is not going to fly.
It's not going to fly. I understood that, but I was like, wait a minute, this was really the reason for a UN to step in situations that a nation cannot find its way out of, for the UN to say, look.
Let's just say.
But no, I know it's not going to happen.
The United States has never flinched, based on what the United Nations. But here's the stuff that here's the point that I want to make, okay? These people, they come here legally. Okay, well, not that they come here legally. They want to come here legally at the borders. They surrender themselves. You know what the Trump administration did? Would turn them away from the borders so that they have no choice but to find another way to cross and come in. These are people who are escaping domestic violence. They're escaping, all kinds of abuses. This is international law again. Everybody does it. It's not only blacks, it's not only browns, white people, they flee persecution wherever persecution is available. It's a human thing. And for anybody who has any area of compassion, we should be talking about this compassionately, not as a matter of policy.
Not as a matter of policy.
Wait, it's a matter of policy, but you know what I mean.
And that's the way it should be, but get real. The president that we have and some of our politicians are looking at is as a zero-sum game. And what they're looking at is the next election, who's going to elect me. And that's why Trump said, this morning or last night? Well, maybe we should shelve this until after
midterm elections.
It's not that he cares one way or another about the policy, the people, or any of that. He cares about whether he's going to get reelected and whether Republicans are going to step up and be the majority in the House and the Senate.
We have a caller on the line. Caller, what is your name and where are you calling from?
Well, maybe we should shelve this until...
Can you turn your radio down just a little bit? Okay. What is your name and where are you calling from, please?
Cheryl, Yorktown, Virginia.
Okay, sure. What is your question or comment?
As I mentioned to the gentleman, my comment is, while I do have compassion and we see that those that are seeking asylum, at what point do we cut it off? We can't continue to take, of course, because those are resources that we have that we're going to now concentrate on. The other thing is back in slavery, kids taken away from their families. But let's look at present day. You have kids that are in the military, their parents shipping off to war, as well as going on assignments that they can't take their kids. We deal with this on an everyday basis as well.
Okay, Benita, can I?
Absolutely.
Because after that question was addressed to me.
It was.
Let me take the last one first, ma'am, and I may very respectfully disagree with you. Because that comparison, as far as I'm concerned, is not the same. Somebody who's going to war joined the military voluntarily. Okay, and by virtue of the fact, if they could take their kids, they would take their kids with them. Let's look at a diplomat, for instance, who's going to Europe.
So what is the cutoff? When do we stop taking
that's
them?
The second
Why
question.
don't we help now these kids, these families are coming from where? Argentina, Venezuela, and where else?
In that case, let me address that question, because I was going to address that secondly. Okay, here's the thing, and I do agree with you on that one. That may surprise you, because nobody is asking for an open border. There are a billion people, probably even more than a billion people in this world that are either abused or are fleeing one kind of persecution or another. Nobody. I have not seen anybody who says, like, let them all come in, open the border for them. But here's the point that I'm trying to make, ma'am. Yes, we have to have a kind of border control. We all agree about that. What we disagree about is the strategy, or is the means by which this is done. You know who has not taken up this charge as they should have? It's the Congress of the United States. Ma'am, for decades, they have been unable to pass any meaningful immigration law.
Okay, I understand, but see, what we're dealing with now is now. We know that there is an issue. Our local constituents, our local congressional constituents, we need to address that.
Yes,
but
ma'am.
Short term, with all due respect,
yes, ma'am.
But short term, when do we cut it off? Right now, we're using resources. We're using resources we want to show so much compassion.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I do have compassion, but we, as I mentioned, we deal with the stresses. We talk about the stresses of the people that made a decision to take the chance and cross horrific terrain to bring their kids to this point. Now we want to house them. Of course, it's not right to separate them. I often said, put them all together. And while you process them, keep them all together. They shouldn't be kept in cages. No, we shouldn't be, but let's keep them together. But we have to stop at some point. What are we doing to stop them from leaving Venezuela, Argentina? What is happening in those countries that they can't stay there?
So, Cheryl, I hear you're saying that perhaps you're saying if what can be done where they are before they try to come here, and what resources.
Yes, the life conditions are horrific. But I am going to go back to the military, because the gentleman, with all due respect, said that's a choice. That's a choice for the freedom and protection of our country. Yes, that is a choice. However, with that choice comes a responsibility that I have to leave my family. And my kids cry also for me some of them I can't, such as Korea. I may not be able to take them to Korea. It's not a choice then, depending on where I get assigned at in Korea. My kids can't go. I don't see anyone showing any compassion when they see my kids on television crying because their mommy has to go to war. But we want to show all of this on television, everybody to be sympathetic. I am sympathetic to the point where we need to keep the families together, but let's not forget, we even have kids where the parents are incarcerated here in the U.S. Those kids cry for their parents too. So we understand the impact and the effects of being separated from your family. We have females that are incarcerated, give birth to kids, for that brief moment hold their kids and never raise them, depending on the time frame that they're going to be incarcerated. Let's just calm down. Everybody needs to calm down and think logically about this. Yes, it is unfortunate, but we need to get a handle of things and stop responding to just that picture of that crying baby, because we have crying kids here in the U.S. as well.
Cheryl, thank you so much for your call. We appreciate it. Dr. Soji, what do you think?
If I may have just 2 seconds to respond to that.
Absolutely.
Number one, ma'am, I want to thank you for your service, because I hear you and I think that you have a military background, if I'm right. The second thing is this. We have to understand that this immigration thing is actually not as bad as it was 2, 3, 4 years ago. 4 years ago, there were 1,400,000 people crossing, or 1,200,000, I don't know what that figure is. Today, it's down by almost 60%. So it's not like we're not doing anything about it. Barack Obama, when he was president of the United States, deported more people than maybe 2 or 3 presidents combined, that came before him. That's number one. That's number one. Number 2 is this, man. And again, I do understand that when you leave, you have to leave your children behind. But at the same time, you can call those children and talk to them when you want. These children do not even know where their parents are. They are not allowed to talk to their parents. That does what? That adds to the trauma. And I don't want to compare apples and oranges, but I just leave it at that. If you are incarcerated...
We're sorry about that. Jesus, go ahead and finish your comment. I'm sorry.
If you are incarcerated, that's because you have committed a crime or you've done something wrong. The only thing these people have done wrong who are trying to cross the borders is that they're trying to flee from something. And that's just the point I was trying to make. Again, I want to thank you for your service anyway.
Thanks so much. Again, we want to hear from you. What are you thinking about what we're saying? Race and racism, those people who are incarcerated. Is it that they don't have the opportunity, of course, and they should be separated from their families and children as they are now? Or are you saying, as Cheryl mentioned, our caller from Yorktown, in terms of let those who are in that country perhaps have the resources that are there and think about all those other aspects? And again, we want you to call in. We want to hear from you. 757-823-9110. 757-823-9110. Whose country is it anyway? Hot 91. Welcome back to Hampton Roads Voices, where the people speak life into their communities. We're saying, whose country is it anyway? We're talking about immigration. We're talking about the images that we're seeing online. We're talking about children taken from their families. And we have on the line a caller. Caller, what is your name and what city are you calling from? Hello? Caller, may I ask your name and what city you're calling from? Are you there? Okay. Maybe our caller, don't forget to call back. Again, let me give you that number. It's 757-823-9110. 757-823-9110. We definitely want to hear from you. Now, in the studio, we have Dr. Carol Pretlow, who's from the Norfolk State University Political Science Department. Again, Carol, it's great that you're here with us today.
My pleasure.
And we have Dr. Soji Kumalafe.
You're getting better.
I'm getting better. You hear me?
I told you.
Did you hear me?
Practice.
He is the chair of the NSU Political Science Department. So our last caller was talking about some of the other situations in terms of a person when their children are not able to be with them. She talked about the military, and she talked about situations and resources and so forth. And so we are looking at that as well. And we're talking about children being separated from their families. And we talked about how blacks and brown people are looking at this issue. And we want you to let us know, do you have any response to this? And what are you feeling? Do you think it's another country's responsibility, or do you think that it is fine for them to come to seek asylum out? Again, give us a call at 757-823-9110. All right, so here we are. We have the kids, and we know that the research says that currently there are 3 family detention centers with about a total of 2,700 bed capacity. And with the spike, though, in families coming and unaccompanied minors coming, approximately 2,300 minors are separated from their families at the border, and that was from May 5th to June 9th, and that's according to Homeland Security. So what are some of the options? Carol, I'm going to start with you, okay? We've seen the images. We're hearing the cries. We see them in cages, those kinds of things. But what are some of our options if this is not the way to do it, this moral issue? What do we do?
Well, frankly, I have to be honest. I have no clue. First of all, I don't like the idea of closing the borders, particularly to people who are coming from oppressed situations in the first place. And by saying that, to me, if we close our borders and say, oh, no, we don't want you, you can't come in, that's in defiance of everything that the United States was created for and all of the heritage and history that's a part of us. Now, my second option, of course, as we are no longer a part of the UN, that's off the picture, out of the framework of what we can do too. So it should be in the hands of our congressmen and people who have expertise in these areas, not to look at it from a political perspective, but say, okay, now, here is what we can do, here is what we can't do. Maybe I hesitate to say this, our president needs to talk directly to the presidents of the affected countries and sit down and not have a political moment, but a humane moment as to, okay, we're both in this situation. What can we do?
That's a thought. Okay, we have some callers on the line, and we appreciate you waiting. And again, when you're calling in, it's 757-823-9110. Caller, what is your name, and where are you calling from, please?
I'm calling from Suffolk, Virginia. My name is Frederick Simpson.
Okay, Cedric from Suffolk. What's your question or
Yes.
comment, please? You're live on the air.
I just really have a comment regarding the current problem with all of the immigrants and the children being detained.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead,
Go
Cedric.
ahead?
Yeah, go ahead, Cedric.
Okay. Yes. First of all, thank you for taking my phone call. I actually disagree with the comment that was just made. I think right now, I think the current thing to do is to reunite the children with their parents, quickly adjudicate their cases, and either allow them to stay or send them back to their countries of origin. I also think that despite America's heritage, I think we're pretty much saturated, and we've reached a point where we need to make a decision on somewhat closing our borders off. There's a lot of resources that could be applied to the U.S. citizens that, in my opinion, many of the immigrants are benefiting from. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Pretlow, what do you think about that?
Well, I agree with her partially, because I'm not saying that my solution was the only way. Yes, I do think that perhaps the leadership of countries and the people who are involved in the decision-making process are at the pinnacle of helping us resolve this. But I'm not thinking that that's the only resolution. I'm thinking that we need to look at it from a variety of perspectives. Naturally, economics is there, and the fact that we have some problems in this country economically ourselves with underprivileged communities and communities that need assistance. So economics is a problem, we need experts in that area. We need sociologists, psychologists. We need a variety of perspectives, and we don't need to look at one thing as the end-all, be-all. We need to look at a variety of approaches.
A variety of approaches. Okay, we have another caller. What is your name, and where are you calling from?
Underprivileged communities and communities that need assistance. Economics is the problem. We need experts in that area. We need sociologists, psychologists. We need a variety.
I'm sorry, turn your phone down. Could you turn your radio, excuse me, can you turn your radio down just a little bit? It's hard to hear you. And I'm sorry.
I turned it off. Can you hear me?
Oh, now I can hear you. Thank you. What is your name and what city are you calling from?
Natasha from Hampton.
Okay, from Norfolk?
From Hampton.
Oh, from Hampton. I'm sorry. And what did you say your name was?
Natasha.
Natasha. Natasha, what is your question or comment? You're live on the air.
Okay, so my comment, honestly, it's a complex thing. I'm just going to start with the background, because people always want to know when you have an opinion like this, you know, how do you feel about immigrants? My mom is a naturalized citizen. Her whole side of the family is a naturalized, it's from overseas, and both my parents were in the military, and I was actually born as an American citizen on a military base in the Philippines. So I just want to get all that out of the way before I say what I'm about to say.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when black people have a problem, we have a problem, and it's all our problem. But when other people have a problem, black people make it theirs. And clearly, immigration is not just, you know, black people are immigrants too. There are black actual immigrants. I don't mean those who are slave descendants. I mean people who actually came here voluntarily. But, you know, it wasn't too long, like some years ago, Haitians swam over here looking for refuge, and they were turned away almost immediately. It is only when the immigrants have a certain look that people suddenly find compassion, and now we need to just let the border open. And there are people who actually don't understand why we even need the Homeland Security or need Border Patrol and all this stuff. And I just want to say that I don't know if you're allowed to air this, but I will say, I think Donald Trump is trash, okay? But I will say this. I think it's really interesting that it took him to be president for people to care about things that have happened forever. People have been raped at the border. People have been used for social experiments at the border. They've been killed for no reason at the border. And now that Trump is president, people suddenly care about people seeking asylum. Now, I think the cages are terrible. I don't know who that did that was. And, you know, I think I saw a picture of them having some ridiculous aluminum blankets. I mean, for these kids, there is no reason for them to treat them the way they're treating them. There is nothing humane about that. But my thing is, there has to be, like the lady said earlier, there has to be some sort of cutoff. And at some point, if you're going to let everybody in, then let everybody in. But that's not happening. There are no black people from anywhere in the world who can just show up without any paperwork. There are all sorts of horrible things happening to us in all these countries that are full of anti-blackness when they don't need us to fight for them over here. And, I mean, there are children with the Boko Haram who stole a bunch of girls. I mean, none of them could have just got on a ship and just sailed over here and been kept. They would have been sent right back. So I'm just going to call it what it is. It is only a crisis when the people who need refuge don't look like me. And I think black people need to keep that in mind. There is plenty going on over here. Frankly, I don't think black girls or women get anywhere near as much protection as we're willing to fight for everyone else to get. I just think that, we really don't have any place. We're not wanted here, and we really have no place else to call home. I mean, we're kind of a lost people, so to speak. So,
Natasha, I'm going to have to stop you here, but I appreciate your call and your passion. We have a couple of more callers on the line, but thank you so much.
No problem.
I appreciate what you said. Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Before I let you all answer or make comment to Natasha's comment, we have another caller on the line. What is your name, please, and where are you calling from? You're live on Hampton Roads Voices.
We really don't have any.
Could you turn your radio down just a little bit, please?
We have no place else to call home.
Hello?
We're kind of a lost people.
Can you turn your radio down just a little bit, please?
I'll stop you here, but I appreciate your call and your passion. We have a couple of more callers on the line, but thank you so much.
Okay. May I ask your name and where you're calling from, please?
I'm Joe from Hampton.
Joe from Hampton. Joe, what is your question or comment?
What is your name, please?
And could you turn your radio down just a little bit, please, Joe?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Is it better?
Yes, better. Go ahead, Joe.
Yes, I have a comment. It won't be as long. There's several things that are wrong with what's being said.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes from people from different countries, for example, Mexico, these people are willing to work harder than what some of the privileged American people will do. So it's not necessarily drug lords that are trying to fight to come to the country for safety and all of this other kind of stuff. Yes, we do have to protect our land and everything like that. I don't think that separating children from parents is okay. I feel as though that that's a scare tactic so that other people from other lands that are a little further south won't bring their children back into the country. However, it is inhumane. We have commercials where people cry over beaten dogs and everything else, but you have people that are literally being treated as animals, and there's far no compassion. So as a leader of the free world, I feel as though that we should still show compassion for everyone that we come in contact with, and our country tends to we have fallen short from doing that.
Joe, thank you so much for your call. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We're going to have to go to break in just a moment, but again, we've had some fantastic callers right now. Don't forget to call in with your question, experience, or your comment so that you'll be live on the air, 757-823-9110, Hampton Roads Voices. Whose country is it anyway? We want to hear from you. Welcome back to Hampton Roads Voices. I'm Benita Adams, your host, and we're having a fantastic conversation about whose country is it anyway, about immigration, the images that we see, the children in the cages, and someone had mentioned the aluminum foil or something, blankets that they have on, the policies, what's going on out there. Our in-studio guests are Dr. Soji Akumalafe, who is the chair of the Norfolk State Political Science Department. I am getting better with that name. And Dr. Carol
I'm giving
Pretlow.
you 2 thumbs up right here. You can see me.
Very good, very good. I'm proud of myself. And Dr. Carol Pretlow, who is the NSU Political Science Department. Now, right before we went to break, we heard from Joe from Hampton, and also we heard from Tasha a little bit earlier. And I want to give you guys a moment to make a couple of comments about what both Joe and Natasha said. Dr. Sochi, I'm going to start with you.
Thank you very much, because I was itching to, chime in while they were talking. And you know what? Not only did they make very good points, but at this point I want to do something, because there are a whole lot of misconceptions about this immigration debate thing. And, at the end of the day, we don't even know what is what. Here's number one thing. I have never met or seen anybody who advocates for an open border. Okay? We all want, no matter what side of the spectrum you belong to, we all want some kind of control. That's number one. Here's the second thing. And for the love of me, I cannot seem to understand this, that if we do not look at this from a compassionate angle, we always not even going to have a solution that is right for the problem. Okay? Canada, European countries, all industrialized countries have to wrestle with this issue. Immigration issue is not an American thing. It's an international thing. We have refugees, we have people seeking asylum, so it's not just the United States. Okay, do we have too many people in the United States? Why are we having this problem right now? Why are we having this debate, and why do we have this strategy that everybody says that it's very odious? Whereas immigration has gone down. I mean, not immigration, people who are trying to cross the border has gone down drastically. Mm-hmm. And I think the figure is about 60%. I may be wrong with that, but it's something in that neighborhood. When Barack Obama was president of the United States, there were over 1 million people crossing the borders. It's not the same thing. At that time, we were not putting children in cages. And as one of your callers said, these are hard-working people. Sometimes they work 2 jobs, 3 jobs, and guess what, Benita? Sometimes, or even many a time, those are jobs that probably nobody else wants to do anyway. So somewhere along the line, I'm thinking that we should be thankful.
Well, let me throw it back out to the phone, 757-823-9110. We have at least 3 people on the line. Caller, what is your name and where are you calling from, please?
People.
Can you turn your radio down just a little bit? Okay, and your name, please?
Camera.
Cameron?
Pamela.
Oh, Pamela. And what city are you calling from, Pamela?
I'm calling from Virginia Beach.
Virginia Beach.
My name is Tamara.
Oh, Tamara. I'm sorry, Tamara.
No,
and Tamara, what is your question or comment? You're live on the air.
Oh, good. I agree with Dr. Sonji. I'm sorry.
Soji. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I agree with him. It is an international problem, the immigration thing, especially when we're looking at Germany. Germany and Europe, Paris, wide open. Well, look what's happening. The Muslims, the extremists are running them over in trucks. They killing them, stabbing them. And the rates have gone up almost over 100% in Paris and in England. Now, back up to our country. Mm-hmm. Our borders wide open. Right now, we got a problem with MS-13. Right here, Virginia is one of the main states that's been overrun by MS-13. So we have to close our borders. We have to take control of our immigration situation. The Democrats are going to have to work with President Trump. They have to. The Republicans that are against Trump, they're going to have to work with them too. Because right now,
the average American, whether you black, white, Hispanic, you legally here, you do not want open borders. We won't have a country if we don't have culture, we don't have a language, and we have open borders. We won't have a country. We'll be completely overrun.
Tamara, I'm going to let Dr. Carol Pretlow take that question. Thank you so much for calling. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, I agree partially with Tamara, but there is a problem there. Our president, I think, would agree wholeheartedly with her. Would agree wholeheartedly. That's why he wanted to construct that wall. And I think that this situation partially plays into his hands because, okay, it's chaos. So why don't we want to construct the wall? Why don't we allocate the funds to have this wall? So I think there is some agreement there that we can't let everybody in, so construct the wall.
If you'd like to make a call, please hang up.
Absolutely. But she was saying that, Tamara was also saying that we need to close our borders, and nobody is saying that particular part. Dr. Soji, what do you think about Tamara said?
Excuse me just a minute, though. And that's what the wall would do. It would close the wall. I mean, it would close the borders. So by restricting immigration, we fight against it. But if we argue that we need to close the borders, his response will be, okay, so let me build a wall.
Dr. Soji, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No problem, Benita. I hope Tamara, that's the name, right?
Tamara, yes.
Yes, I hope Tamara is still listening, okay? Because I'm going to use her exact words, okay? She said, we do not want an open border.
Right.
We want to control our border. Now, what is happening right now, is that people think that, I don't know of any Democrat who's advocating for an open border. Republicans want to control the border. Democrats want to control the border. Independents want to control the border. Everybody wants to control the border. You cannot have an open border. That's an assault on your national sovereignty. Nobody's asking for that. Nobody's advocating for that. What we are saying right now is that the strategy that they have chosen to control the border is not compassionate. Sometimes it's not even lawful. And seriously, it's not humane, as some of your callers have attested to. That's my point.
And Dr. Soji, I know that you mentioned a couple of times you're saying it's not right, wrong, or the left or the right. It's a compassion issue. It's an ethical issue, is what you've said before. And we do have one other caller on the line. Caller, what is your name and where are you calling from? Oh, we dropped that call for. So, Dr. Pretlow, what do you think about that? Again, you were saying it's working together. This is working together and trying to make this thing happen. And you mentioned earlier simply about there are a lot of different ways and strategies that we need to look at.
I firmly believe that, but I also understand the reality of this situation is that we have a president that, unfortunately, I don't think he is looking about, well, let's all get along, let's sing together, kumbaya. I'm thinking he is using this as a political bait, and he is arguing that, okay, well, could we put a pin in this until after the midterms, and then we'll deal with it. He is looking at it from a political strategic standpoint. Let's look at our strategy. Let Republicans look at our strategy. I don't think he could care. I think he could care less than spit about the humanity of any of it, really. I think he's looking at it as a political game only.
Dr. Soji, do you agree with that? Political game, or is it really policy, strategy? What do you think?
Which is a shame, because it's a political game, because everything now is political, including things that should be, taken care of because they're moral issues, okay? And we all know where this is going to end, okay? Because at the end of the day, they will still have to sit down at the table, both parties, and they will have to iron this out, okay? Here's another thing. Let me share this with our listeners, okay? Look at our neighbor to the north, Canada. You know, while we're having this debate in the United States, Canada is actually actively increasing the number of asylees that it's taking in. And I can tell you a personal story of somebody that I know, okay? Seeking asylum in Canada, got to the border, they were interviewed, they took them in with 3 children, you understand? And then, you know, after a few months or whatever, they were housed. Yes, it's at the expense of the government. But these are people that 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, the children will become doctors and engineers. And the fraction of money that the Canadian government has spent on them, they will recuperate that money back. You know, this is even, it doesn't make economic sense. It doesn't make political sense. It certainly does not make any moral sense.
Now, one of our callers did mention, he said, well, and I know we've heard this part of the conversation, okay, those people who are seeking asylum, those people who are coming to this country, naturalized citizens or even immigrants or what have you, saying that they are willing to work at jobs that some of our, and he said the word privileged Americans aren't even willing to do. Carol, what should we think about that?
That's a difficult one for me because I see it from so many perspectives. We say that there are jobs that Americans aren't willing to do, or some Americans aren't willing to do. I wonder, what are those jobs? Because I see people, and frankly, I run into people on light rail. I have had cab drivers who told me they are very educated people, and they are not only driving cabs, they're doing other things that we think that some people think they shouldn't be doing, or they shouldn't have to do. So this is a difficult question. I mean, I don't know what those jobs are because I have had students, I have had friends. I have a friend now who has a master's degree and is doing what you would think a high school graduate would do. So,
well, you have a caller on the line. Caller, what is your name and where are you calling from, please?
Good evening.
Hi, what's your name, please? And you're live on the air. Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Eric. I'm calling from Norfolk.
Okay, Eric, what is your question or comment?
My comment, I just want to first say hi to Dr. Kumala, say hi to Dr. Pretlow.
Hey.
Hey, how you doing?
How you
doing, buddy?
Right. My comment is, like, it's a very much humanitarian crisis. I would say that our representatives, Congress, congressional, state, all need to get involved. But again, I think it's a bigger issue still that, like I said, we're closing the borders, but we've had immigration from Europe and other nations for the past century. That hasn't been a problem. You have more brown people coming across, like you say, you just talked about the jobs and the different things that people are doing, highly educated, doing very low-wage things that in other countries they would have been doctors and lawyers and other things, but they come here, they take what they can do. But again, like I say, and the statistics are coming out that European or white Americans, their numbers are decreasing. So again, I think it's somewhat to do with the decrease in the white population and realizing that we have more brown people coming in. We're closer to 2020. The population shift is changing. It's really happening. And it's a lot of white fear out there. Trump, I don't really know what his policy is or what his direction is with this. It's very much, it seems irrational and emotional, but it very much is a very disgusting thing to have such things happen. But again, I don't say close the borders, but in the same breath, just be responsible, keep people together. Because, like I say, again, Europeans have been coming over here for the past 100 years. You've seen it at different points in time throughout history where you have either mechanization, you have automation now, AI technology, so you have less need for low-skilled wage workers. You don't have a need for families. You can't do anything with the children, the families. So it's a very difficult crisis, but again, it's, I think, a much more complex thing, and I don't think really that our legislative has really dealt with us over the years, and our president is not leading in the correct direction to be responsible, to be reasonable, or to deal fact-based at all. And what his wife wore to when she went to the Defense Center the other day, that was just deplorable, and it doesn't send a good message at all. It's been bad internationally since he got there, and he's lowered the standard for the White House, the presidency, as well as our outlook as Americans to internationals all over the world.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Eric. We really appreciate your call and your comment.
Thank you. I'll take my off air.
Okay, thanks so much. Dr. Carol, I'll start with you.
Now I can say that Dr. Kamalafi and I should be very proud and shut up. We just had the perfect summation. Eric, thank you.
I can agree with you, Mom.
Absolutely.
I have a comment on Eric's, and this again, this is really very, very ironical. We have people coming from Europe. We have people coming from all of the industrialized worlds. Okay. You have refugees from those places too. They might not be as many as people coming from, down south. But do we have this kind of, outcry? We don't. Is it because of the number? And even if it is because of the number, why are we, again, I say this at the risk of sounding like a broken record, why are we hyping this problem when immigration has actually got down by more than 40%? And I understand those people who are very emotional about the fact that, this looks like an open border. It is not an open border. The problem is not getting worse, it's getting better. But guess why we think it's getting worse? Because we have somebody in the White House who called people rapists, somebody in the White House who said that there were, good people on both sides, and I don't have to finish that sentence, and I can go on and on and on. So that's what I'm saying. Let us look at the politics of this. Nobody wants the United States of America to be invaded by refugees, by foreigners. No, that's not the case. The problem is not getting worse, ladies and gentlemen. It is getting better. It does not mean that we should not address it. Please call your congressmen, call your politicians. They're the ones who are too timid to do anything about this. The moment they decide to act about this, problem solved. It's just that simple.
I'm going to ask our listeners, what do you think about that? We talked about open borders, closed borders. We talked about it being a humanitarian issue, about calling the congressmen in your congressional areas and districts. Have you done that? What have you done? Call in with some solutions. What do you think should be going on? Our number 757-823-9110. Call in, call live 757-823-9110. We're talking about whose country is it anyway? It's Hot 91. If you're just joining us, I'm Benita Adams, your host for Hampton Roads Voices. And we've been talking about the immigration issue, the zero tolerance policies. We're asking the question, whose country is it anyway? And we've had some fantastic callers talking about their experiences. And one caller called in about her parents being naturalized. We talked about the separation of children. So don't forget to call in 757-823-9110, 757-823-9110. So Dr. Soji and Dr. Carol, right before we went to the break, we were listening to what Eric was saying in terms of solutions and calling our political pundits and those kinds of things. And any other comments, Dr. Soji, I'm going to start with you before we go back to the phones, in terms of what Eric said for solutions and what we need to do in our own communities.
More often than not, when we blame others for something, we should be asking ourselves, what have we done? Okay? And I say this with all due respect to, the callers out there and many of our listeners. If somebody picks up the phone and call your congressman or your congresswoman, you call your senator, and you tell them, or you write an email to them, precisely all those, whether you're for or against, it really doesn't matter. But that's the first place to start. Please, Let your politicians, the people who represent you, we don't call them representatives for nothing. Let them know how passionately you feel about this. Okay? In fact, Benita, you were asking at the beginning of this show, you understand why, President Trump has to, reverse himself. It's because of the outcry. Okay? And there's another thing we haven't even said, we haven't even mentioned. The fact that this is, the rest of the world is watching us. We are not the only ones seeing those children in cages. We are not the only ones seeing, we're not the only ones seeing 5-year-old children crying, being taken away from their parents. The rest of the world, if you say, you understand, that you're the leader of the free world, it comes with responsibilities too. If you talk the talk, we should be prepared to walk the walk. So let us talk about that too. Let us talk about the fact that everybody else is watching us. They're supposed to be taking the lead from us. Is this the best that we have? I don't think so.
Carol, jump on in.
I agree totally. And I can't remember the columnist, but it was in the New York Times last week, and he was saying at one point the United States was the power figure politically in the world. We said we were the leaders of the free world. Now we're backing off from our international affiliations. We are, I hate to use the phrase, kissing up to Putin. Mm-hmm. We are losing respect because we're not standing up to the plate. And the irony is that as powerful as Germany, France, Canada are, they're backing away from us. And one of the ways that we can recapture, as you said, Dr. Kamalafe, our power is to stand up for what is right and for us as citizens to ensure this by not only voting, but making sure our congressmen know that we are dissatisfied.
Okay, absolutely. We have some callers on the line. Caller, what is your name and where are you calling from, please? Hello? You're live on the air, Hampton Roads Voices. What is your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Greta. I'm calling from Virginia Beach.
Okay. Greta, what's your comment or question?
My comment is that everybody is upset about what's going on with the children and stuff, with the immigration and stuff. But do people remember what happened in Katrina when Bush separated those younger kids from the bus? And then let them be with their parents. So the United States got a habit of separating their kids from their parents.
So you're saying this is nothing new. So
no, it's nothing new. They did it with the storm happened in Katrina.
Right.
And he separated those kids from their parents. And these are people from the United States, live in the United States, and they still haven't located some of their children.
And which is really what's going on with, as you hear and read the articles and so forth about these parents. They're saying, okay, well, now we're not going to separate you. You can go and be with your kids. And some are saying, we don't even know where our kids are. And so, Greta, you're making a point that this is not immigrants and refugees and so forth, people from the United States. This has happened before.
Yes. And I also want to make a comment about the gentleman that said call your congressman and stuff. Well, I did call my congressman, Scott Taylor, to tell him about that. I did not agree with this, but also Scott Taylor is an American citizen, but why is he over $11,000 in his back taxes? So is he the right person that I need to talk with?
You just got to put that one in.
Yeah.
I thought I'd just say that, right?
Yes. So he got back taxes on property that's in Norfolk and Virginia Beach, and he owed over $11,000 in back taxes.
That's a thought. Greta, thank you so much for your call.
Yeah, let me
All right,
respond.
thank you.
Dr. Soji, bye-bye.
Yeah, I was going to respond to Greta. Number one, Greta, thank you very much because you did call your congressman, and I do applaud you for that. And then your first question that you raised, actually, it was a comment. It was not a question. I have a very short answer for you, probably the shortest answer I have ever given. It was wrong then when Bush did it. It is still wrong now, period.
Absolutely. Okay, we have another caller. Caller, you're live on the air, Hampton Roads Voices. What is your name and where are you calling from, please?
Hi, yes, ma'am. My name is Valencia, calling from Chesapeake.
And you said Valencia?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay, and what is your question or comment? You're live.
I just wanted to say, yeah, my radio's down. I just wanted to say that Trump doesn't care about brown and black people. And every time he speaks of the immigrants, he's referring to them as criminals. And it's ridiculous. Of course, this has been going on in America forever, starting back with slavery. So I don't know what the solution is. I tell you, it's not getting better. And when those people, I think he was in Duluth when the people were chanting, send them home.
Mm-hmm.
I get sick of that. The media and everybody keeps saying that he's talking to his base. But whether he likes it or we like it, which I don't, he is everybody's president of the United States. And that's what is sickening about this whole thing. It's
Absolutely.
ridiculous.
It is
Yes,
ridiculous.
ma'am.
Thank you so much for your call.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you guys as well.
Dr. Carroll, what are you thinking about what she said?
I agree totally, and I think it's a totally, when we are looking at it from the humane standpoint, what is humane, what is good for the people, I don't think that's his game. I think his game is I want to win, and I'm going to do anything and everything I can do to win, and that's all. I don't think, even this executive agreement, someone mentioned it a week ago, and he played the word game. No, it's not policy, it's policy, it's not law, and I will have to go back to Congress. I'm not going to say what I want to say, but the reality is if he's going to play the political game, we got to play the political game, and that means getting out, as you said, Dr. Kamalafi, talking to our congressmen, signing petitions, calling for meetings, doing what we have to do. If he's going to do it, we got to do it, and we got to we got to change things. And that will make our Congress people and people who are directly responsible to us understand that they're in this game too, and they better get their act together.
Absolutely. We're going back to the phones now. You're live on the air, Hampton Roads Voices. What is your name and where are you calling from, please? Hello. You're live on the air. What is your name, please?
Doug Quill.
Doug. You said Doug?
Don. D-O-N.
Don. Okay. And what is your question or comment, Don?
Oh, I wanted to make a comment on the comment that was made about the immigrants willing to work jobs that the average American feel like they were too good to work.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead and make your comment.
Yeah. Don Quill.
Don, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment. On the situation that my man said about the immigrants working jobs that the average American feel like they're too good to work.
Right. You agree with that or disagree with that?
I disagree. I feel like they're able to work those jobs. It's not that we don't want to work those jobs, but they're able to work those jobs because they don't have to pay taxes. When the average American work those jobs and pay taxes, they're not able to. Hello?
I'm here. Go ahead, Don. You're still live. Go ahead, Don. Okay, I think we missed.
I am so glad, Benita.
But go ahead, Dr. Soji, because he was just talking about those jobs. What do you think?
I am so glad that he made that point, okay? Mm-hmm. And he may have not misunderstood, but maybe misconstrued what I said. But guess what? Do you blame the immigrants or do you blame the employers who bring them in? Is the employers, is there a reason, by the way, why the U.S. Chamber of Commerce opposes Donald Trump on this? Even though they may have agreed with him on just about everything else? Now, please do not kill the messenger. That's the point I'm trying to make. Okay? These folks will stop coming here if they don't get that job. The only reason why they're crossing, the only reason why they're risking their lives, we have not even talked about that. They walk 1,000 miles to get here. Some of them die. Okay? And the only reason why they're there is that there are people here who are willing to employ them. One more point, and I'm done. It happened in the state of Alabama a couple of years ago. They passed the most draconian immigration policy in Alabama to the extent that they were almost going from door to door and rooting them out. But guess what? The next election, those people were voted out because they couldn't get anybody to wash the plates in the restaurant. The tomatoes were rotten on the farms. The the Alabama Chamber of Commerce had to spearhead a campaign to the extent that those people were voted out. And now, Alabama, regardless of what anybody says, seems to be one of the most, well, probably not the most friendly immigration states, but at least they've learned a lesson. That's the point I was trying to make. I hope Don is listening.
Don, I hope you heard that. If your call dropped, give us a call again. What do you think about what Dr. Soji just said? Are there jobs out there you say, oh, no, the immigrants are coming in and they're taking our jobs, or I wanted that position and I did not get it for various reasons, or I have called my congressman, my congresswoman, and I have, as Greta mentioned on the line, and she's called and she's voiced her opinion. Have you seen any action out there? 757-823-9110. This is Hampton Roads Voices, Hot 91. Welcome back to Hampton Roads Voices. I'm your host, Benita Adams, and we've been talking about whose country is it anyway? We've been talking about that immigration policy, the zero tolerance. We've been talking about opening our borders, closing our borders, jobs, and so forth. But we want to talk in the last few minutes that we have, we want to talk about solutions. What organization should be involved in this issue, and what are some of the solutions? Dr. Carroll, I'm going to start with you.
Wow. I can't think of an organization that shouldn't be involved. First of all, I do think that the NAACP, although we tend to think of it as associated with African Americans only, it's not. It is multicultural. So NAACP, Urban League, our churches should be involved in it, not from a religious perspective, perhaps, but from a humanitarian perspective.
Okay. Dr. Soji, what do you think?
And
what are some of the solutions?
Yeah, Karen is absolutely right. The Catholic Church, by the way, has taken a very, very stand on this one that is a threat to life. It is. Benita, we have a party here. Mm-hmm. You understand? That is claimed to fame is, the family structure, the structure of the family, okay? And we don't want to go into the debate, okay? But we know how much, family is supposed to mean to Donald Trump's party. You would expect that this is going to be the last party that would do this kind of thing. But anyway, to come back to your question, there was the solution. At the risk of sounding simplistic, for me, it's not that complicated. Again, I come to the point that I made at the beginning. It is a question of right or wrong. If you think this is right and you have the opinion, you have the right to have that opinion, okay? But if you think this is wrong, then you have the obligation to do something about it. Yes, the organizations can chime in, ACLU, the civil rights organization, the churches, like you said. But my call is to each and every one of us. It may be the Browns today. You don't know who that's going to be tomorrow. It was the Irish yesterday. Mm-hmm. Don't let us forget about that. And some time back, it was the Italians. You don't know whose turn it's going to be. We should just do what is right. Stand up for what is right. If you have not been talking, you don't even have to talk. Please educate yourself. Don't change the channel the next time somebody is talking about this thing. Because the more you know, then you will be able to act. Please, be a part of this debate. Do not sit on the fence. This is not working. The rest of the world is watching the United States. Can we just get it right, please?
I bet we've all heard the quote, be the change you want to see in the world. And Carol, you're agreeing with that because that is an important part. That is such an important part. We may not be able to do things on a international scale, but what can we do in our own backyards, here in Hampton Roads, in our own communities, with our families? As someone called in, Greta called in and said she had talked with her congressperson. Again, what have you done to be a part of the solution and in the conversation? Because this matters very much. We have had such a lively conversation. Dr. Soji, I'm going to ask you to give us your contact information. Tell us briefly about the sociology department, and go ahead.
It is the political science department.
You want a beat down?
Oh, my goodness. I can't believe I said that. I am so sorry.
I got your back.
Thank you.
Don't worry. Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Please, if you're listening out there, come and join us. Come and talk to us. Come and visit us. Send us an email. Phone us. Call us. It's the Department of Political Science. We're doing some fantastic things as far as civic engagement is concerned. Come and learn about our curriculum. Come and learn about our program. Let me give you a number where you can reach us. That number is 757-823-8999. That's very simple to remember. Again, the number is 757-823-8999. And for those of you who are very conversant with Norfolk State, we are housed at the GWC Memorial Brown Hall. It's a beautiful building. If you haven't been there, this is going to be your chance. And we're on the 3rd floor. We look forward to seeing you.
Absolutely. Carol, your contact information.
Well,
please.
Norfolk State University, Department of Political Science, C. Pretlow at nsu.edu. And those of you who see me walking down the street or in the mall, stop me and talk like so many people do.
Absolutely. So it has really been an enlightening conversation, and that's what we do here on Hampton Roads Voices, is where people speak life into their community. And I always like to think of us also as we're finding solutions for today's issues, finding solutions for today's issues. And this definitely is an issue. And I know it's been emotional, but we appreciate your conversation. We appreciate the civility in which you asked your questions. So again, our studio guests have been Dr. Soji Akumulafe, who is the chair of the NSU Political Science Department. No, I didn't.
I'm applauding you right now.
And Dr. Carol Pretlow, NSU Political Science Department as well. And we thank you. We are here every Friday.
Thank you so much.
We are here every Friday. Thank you so much.
Thank you
and
for
we
having
always
us.
enjoy hearing from you. And don't forget that we rebroadcast this on Sundays at noon, and also follow us on all aspects of social media and our YouTube channel at Hampton Roads Voice, because you'll be able to hear the program again on Sunday from 12 to noon, noon to 2, and also you'll be able to hear it again on our YouTube channel. Again, follow us on Facebook. My contact information is bkadams@nsu.edu. Send me your ideas and your suggestions, or email me at benita@benitaadams.com. We have had such a pleasure talking with you today, hearing from you, because again, you're speaking life into your communities. Hampton Roads Voices, I'm Benita Adams. Thanks so much for being with us. The views and opinions expressed on this program are not those of Norfolk State University or WNSB FM. Thank you for listening.